Hey, welcome to Integrative Preparedness. I'm Steve Smith. First off, I want to welcome all the new subscribers. It's great to have you here. Remember to hit the little thumbs up and the bell and subscribe and share it with your friends and everything like that. Also, welcome to everybody who's coming over to Patreon. It is great to have you over there. I continue to be surprised and gratified at the number of people coming over to Patreon where we cover things over that we don't cover here. And as things get a little dicier in our country, probably going to be more and more over there that you might want to know about. So I welcome you to come over there if you care. The link will be right down here somewhere, called my Patreon page or something like that. Okay, some years ago, I was detained by the PSNI, the Police Service of Northern Ireland, in Belfast, for taking a picture of a couple of them and their car while they were making a traffic stop. It was an interesting situation. The group that I was with, and I had just left a meeting with the Lord Mayor of Belfast about a different issue. And we were taking a walk down, and it's fancy over there, as you can imagine. Anybody called the Lord Mayor, right? He had a lot of fancy stuff all around him. He was kind of a dumb guy, but we had to meet him doesn't matter why, we just had to. We were walking down this rainy January night in Belfast to go to spend the rest of the night in a pub. And so we were walking down the street, and among our group was a former member of Jerry Adams' security detail. If you know what that means, then you know what it means. If not, you can always Google it. Google Jerry Adams. I saw, as we were approaching an intersection, I saw that a PSNI car, the PSNI were the next generation after the RUC, the Royal Ulster Constabulary, and both of them have pretty bad reputations for being heavy-handed, as according to the rights of people. And I saw that one of their cars had pulled over to the curb. Two of their guys had gotten out and were questioning a couple of people at the side of the street. So I kind of held back. I let the rest of the group get on ahead of me about a half a block because I wanted to do something. It's something I shouldn't have done, but I did it anyway. And I held back, and while these two guys, I waited until the ones being questioned went on their way, and as these two were getting back, big guys. The Brits always send their big guys to Ireland to be on the police forces. As they were getting back into their little bitty car, I took a picture of it, and then I went on and kind of rejoined my group as they were waiting to cross the next intersection. Well, as soon as we were there, that PSNI car, roared up, well, as much as a little car can roar, but wheeled up there, jumped the curb, and out come these two big guys. And they just come right through our group there, and come right up to me and say, "Did you just take a photograph of us?" And I'm good at playing, however I need to. I said, "Well, yes, I did." And they said, so they started questioning me as to my purpose in taking a picture of them. And I just played like, I said, "Well, I'm an old ex-cop. I just played like a dumb Yank, I'm just an old ex-cop from the States and thought it'd be interesting. Just want to take a picture of you guys for, show my buddies back home." And so they demanded to have my camera, and they started looking through it. And a friend of mine who was also in the group, he was a retired chief of police from the area around here, and he kind of spoke up, and he had his retired chief badge on him, and so he flashed it, and kind of made that international police connection there, hopefully. And so they went through all my pictures, and I'm sure there were some things in there they were interested to see, but they finally came to the conclusion. They told me that they felt there was nothing sinister in my camera or in my. They probably knew because of who I was with, but there was nothing sinister, and so they would let me be on my way, but they wanted to make sure that I understood that taking a picture of a police personnel or equipment was a no-no. That started on a trip. The reason that I was over there, I was with a group called Children for Peace in Ireland, and it was an organization that brought kids together from the Republican and the Loyalist side, the Catholic and the Protestant, and brought them over the States and made friends. And so I was over there with that group because I belonged to that group. It just so happened that at the time I was also the president of another group that was closely affiliated with an organization that the British have no love for. And I was nothing special. It was a group of committed people who knew what they were doing and who worked for justice in Ireland. And it was kind of a revolving presidency, and it was just kind of my turn. And so I just happened to be there at the time. When I went over, when I left home here to make the trip, and this is going to be a lesson in what they know about you and getting ready for it. Okay, there's a lot of talk, and a lot of paranoia about things, and a lot of times people aren't as worried as they should be. But this is the purpose of my talk here, and then we'll get around to what I'm talking about, the Securistate, because this is where I first heard the term Securocrats over in the north of Ireland, and those are the bureaucracy that has grown because of the security interests, just like we've seen here since 9/11. So anyway, when I went over there, I didn't leave. For some reason, I held back, and I didn't leave with the rest of the group from Kansas City because of something I had going on, and I was going to fly, and I was going to meet them in Chicago, and then take the adjoining flight from there to over to, and I think we're first going to land in Dublin and then make our way north to Belfast. So anyway, for whatever reason, I took on a different flight. Well, when I went up to the airport, Kelly dropped me off, and I went in there, and then they held us on the ground for a long time. And they told us that it was because of bad weather in Chicago. And I don't know how long we were sitting there. It was, if you ever sat on a plane, a minute seems like an hour. So it was a good amount of time. So I sat there, and then I became concerned that, we sat here very much longer. I might miss my connection with the guys at O'Hare. And so we sat there. Well, we finally took off and got to O'Hare, and just as I had worried about, it turned out that I had missed my connection. So I got to hurrying on and making different calls and things, and how can I, get this? I need to get to Dublin and all that. Well, after going through a mess with a lot of different people, it turned out, they couldn't get me to Dublin. They were going to send me through Heathrow in London. So I got, okay, all right. So I get on that one. We fly over to London. We land in Heathrow. So we land there, and somebody comes on. Don't remember. No, it was just an announcement. Somebody comes on. I was looking up there, and a guy came on, and he's talking to the stewardess, and there's some discussion, and finally she comes on, and she says, would passenger Stephen Smith please remain on board until everyone else has departed. So I said, sure. Now remember, I was the president, you know, of this other group that England doesn't like. So I sit there and I sit there and I sit there and I go, okay, what are we going to do? What's happening now? So finally, everybody gets off, and then this guy walks back, and he says, "You Stephen Smith?" I says, "Yep." He says, "Sir," and there's nothing. The British, a certain class of British. There's a lot of great British people, but there's a certain class of British person, usually in a position of authority, that has developed the ability to just insult you to the bone while being so proper it hurts. Well, he lets me know that there's apparently some trouble with my luggage, and they need me to go down through and talk to some people about my luggage. So I said, okay, all right, I get you. So he gets out. Instead of taking me anywhere, he directs me down a hallway. And he says, now you follow the, green line, yellow line, whatever it is. You just follow this. It's going to go all over the place. You follow that until you'll get to passport control, and then they will send you. And it's not the way that everybody else was going. And then they will direct you to baggage, and then they will, discuss with you what the problem is. So I said, okay. So I take off. On my little lonesome down this hallway. Well, this hallway ends going into another hallway that goes into another hallway. And I, like a mouse after cheese, am going down all this labyrinth of hallways, bare hallways. There's nothing in them, but cameras and ballistic glass. And I mean, it was like a cattle chute, And I don't know how long it seemed like a long ways, and corners and corners and corners and corners, and everywhere I looked, there's cameras and ballistic glass. There was no way to get out of here, and it made me think. I was never in East Berlin, but it made me think. If I was going to draw a picture of East Berlin, this is probably what I'd draw. So anyway, I finally get down to passport control, and they mess around with me a little bit and question me on some things. And then they say, well, okay, go on back through, go over there to your, to the baggage, and it'll be over there. So I go get my bags, and I said, okay, here I am, Stephen Smith. They said there was some problems with my bags. They said, no, everything's fine. Okay, well now I have to make my connection from Heathrow to, where did I go? Dublin. That's right. Now Dublin is in the Republic of Ireland, and I need to get to Belfast, which is in what they call Northern Ireland, which is a British state. So anyway, I have to take my luggage back through, and they tell me, well, now, and I can't just go back to passport control here. I've got to go back through a whole much more of maze-like hallways, lugging all this junk, and because I'd taken too much, and then I had to go back through passport control again before I got onto my little puddle jumper over to Dublin. And as I went through at that time, they tore my stuff apart. They just tore it apart. They went through everything. They took everything out. They looked at my little tape recorder that I had, because I was going to interview some people over there for an Irish newspaper or a little magazine that at the time I was putting out. And they looked at it. They questioned me. How does this operate? What is this? What is this? And I'd say, it's a tape recorder. Here, you push the button, talk into it. It'll record you. Well, they weren't sure about that, and they thought that this was kind of a funny deal, and they just needed to, blah, 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 blah. They just went on, and they just tore my stuff apart. When they finally, admitted, they didn't figure it out. They knew it all the time. They finally admitted that there was nothing sinister, again, in my luggage. They just crammed it all back in, all my neatly folded shirts and pants and everything like that. We just crammed in like a 6-year-old would. And they said, okay, you may go. So there I went off to my little plane. So I finally got that. I got aboard a little smaller plane, hopped over the Irish Sea there, and landed in Dublin. And then I had to find out how to make my way into the north and make it across the border. And I finally did that. And there's another story that maybe I'll tell sometime that's kind of funny about that. But this is probably a good place to stop this. The thing is, that was my first introduction to the Securistate as it was applied against non-combatant civilians. Interestingly enough. Now, I won't say that the police in the United States have not sometimes been extremely careless with the rights of our citizens here. But this was the first that I had come up against real concerted, organized, to where you could see beneath the veil how much information had gone into this, how much information they knew, and what lengths they were willing to go to just jack around with you in the smallest way. And I think that that's something that a lot of people in our country just don't understand. This is why it's to be taken extremely seriously, because what they can do with you and what they can do to you. During my time over there, I learned a lot more about the Securistate, and the Securistate is building here in our country. I remember back in the 70s when the new building for the FBI was being built here in Kansas City. And before that, it had simply been down in the federal building. As a matter of fact, I had an office down there my last year or so in uniform, downtown in the courthouse. And the federal building was across the street, and the FBI had their offices there. They had some others around, but they had it there. And then they built a new building out on the west side of downtown, and this thing, it looked like a bunker. And it was all concrete, no windows. It was surrounded by iron fencing and gates and electric gates, and I'd never seen anything like that in American civilian law enforcement. And I knew things were headed in the wrong direction at that time. Well, things have been headed in that direction more and more ever since. And, we now have, and I've spoken about it before, something that I don't agree with, and that is the militarization of the civilian police. The police are supposed to be different than the military. They're not supposed to be an occupying force. We heard former President Obama talk about we need a domestic, how did he say it? A domestic security force as large and as well equipped as our military. Well, there is no reason to have that unless the reason is to oppress and control people. That is not law enforcement. That is not protecting and serving, like was on the side of so many patrol cars, to protect and to serve. That's entirely different. So we have kind of gone in fits and starts, and some administrations has got more serious, and others has kind of backed off of it. We're now in a situation under this current administration to where we see a concerted effort to, again, minimize the rights of the civilian population, and to increase the amount of force or the amount of control that the government has over us. This is extremely dangerous, and we are entering a phase, I believe, of the development of a Securistate. Now, a Securistate evolves into well, we know what it evolves into. And it's a time, now over on Patreon, and I suggest you go over there, I talk more about dealing with it. Here, I simply want to encourage everyone to prepare to deal with it. Pay attention to what's going on. Up your preps. You should, we're going to get back to basic preparedness on this. You should be able to provide for yourself. Okay. Your preps ought to be able to last you until you're able to provide for yourself. And by that I mean you should have enough food stored until you're able to grow everything that you need. And I know that that's beyond the ability of many people. Okay. Or I shouldn't say it's beyond the ability. It's beyond what most people will do. Okay. But you should do everything you can. Over on Patreon, I talk a lot. I have talked a lot about, going to talk a lot more about developing the ability to live under an oppressive situation. Those are important skills to have. It's important knowledge to have. I just put up one over there a few minutes ago on Patreon called Hidden Lessons. And there are hidden lessons in some of the stuff that I've put up over there. I'm not going to put it here. If you want it, go on over. But this is what we should be preparing for now, even while we resist it. Doesn't mean that we shouldn't resist it. Doesn't mean that we shouldn't work against it. We have to work against it as hard as we can. We have to resist it as much as we can. But the preparation needs to increase so that if we find ourselves living in a situation that makes it harder and harder and harder on us, we're able to sustain ourselves, without the benefit of all those little governmental goodies, or without the benefit of uninterrupted delivery systems, things like that. Anything can happen as our country goes through this, as our country weakens. The threats to our grid, the threats to our food delivery systems, the threat to our economy increases every day. And so we need to go back to those very basic preparedness steps. Make sure that we're prepared, and then think about living in a Securistate. And that makes it even harder. It's not fun to think about, but it's something that has to be thought about, and this has to be addressed. So I'm going to leave you with that. Remember that we prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow, and we are entering a time when those preparations that we make today are really going to take on a different flavor than they ever have before. So you all have a good day. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.